most men back then were abusive. Most
sure.
men back
Pimps,
then
man. For sure.
were narcissists, right? You do as I say.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You see, y'all saw what love got to do. Y'all saw Ike Turner. Y'all saw how Ike Turner got down. You feel me?
Yeah.
So when I look at my mom, she was in a lot of abusive relationships.
Right.
And I was so mad at her for the longest time, bro, because I'm like, why don't you say nice things? Or why don't you just hug me out the blue? Why don't you kiss me? Why don't you hold me? Why don't you, you know what I'm saying? And I realized as I got older, she didn't have the capacity to, because she never was shown that.
Exactly.
Man, what's happening? This is what happens when TV raises your kids. And I'm speaking like, back in the day, I'm part of Gen X, and I'm saying that for a reason of the latchkey kid thing. Like, um, people used to think, sit your baby in front of the TV and they'll, that the TV can halfway raise them. And what happens is, but we were outside a lot though. We played outside. So we lived the fantasy of TV, but the reality of the real world, um, that was a real trial and error. Like, oh, I'm Superman. Bam. Oh, this ground hurts. You know what I'm saying? I can't fly. Like, that's literally people would do that type of stuff. Some people didn't make it, by the way. So stay there. And that was before I was a kid. They was doing that when black and white TVs existed. But this concept, especially in our community, I've seen over my years too many black men, too many black women who are adults who reference movies and televisions as a synopsis for real life. You know how they acted in The Color Purple. You saw how What's Love Got to Do with It. You saw Boys in the Hood. You saw, dog. If and then you put the movies that in your mind become part of who we are as a people. The men back in the day was abusive because of I saw What's Love Got to Do with It. But my mama was dating. First of all, the story of Ike and Tina Turner is not set in the same time period as, you as a child when your mama was an adult. that might be that that could be a 30-year difference. You get what I'm saying? But Ike Turner, my mama like the abusive relationship. No, dog, like I don't, and I gotta say this also because this is another aspect of it. Families aren't as connected as they used to be, like extended family. Sorry, because what I get is a lot of y'all don't really talk to y'all parents. Y'all didn't have y'all didn't really talk to y'all grandparents. Y'all didn't talk to y'all aunts and uncles. Y'all didn't have those conversations, or y'all wasn't paying attention when they were talking to you. Because this concept of I'm gonna just make stuff up, oh, I learned a new word. Somebody's a narcissist. It's based in you using entertainment to justify, your with a confirmation bias with whatever it is. And it's like, yo, live, dog. Maybe your mama was, your mama could have been in an abusive relationship. She could have been. Or your mama just could have been hard headed and and birds of a feather flock together. But you can't see that. You blaming everybody else. That's why you got to blame Lawrence Fishburne, because that's who played Ike Turner. And people did that back in the day. Man, that's how people did. Lawrence Fishburne is not Ike Turner. Played the hell of a character in the movie, but he's not Ike Turner. Hate to break the news to you. And this goes somewhere because, there's too often where you got movies, television and movies, and sometimes, and word of mouth sometimes, and even in music. Y'all are used that as a history lesson without actually knowing what's going on in those times. I saw a couple of shows. I listened to some songs. I saw a movie, and then and people said such. So this is what it is, man. You don't know what you're talking about. TV and entertainment has given too many people lazy man's logic. You don't think. You just put somebody in a box that's beneficial for you and your story and your narrative. And then and let me do it this way also. You know how um I just did a video about people quiet quitting and not having kids, but I'm gonna add this to that concept. Um because when it comes to men bashing men of the past, right? You had we also went through an era where um fathers got bashed, and then the kids became fathers and go, "Oh, my bad. I see what's going on now. I was wrong." But now you got an era of men and young men who they're pointing the fingers at other people's lives and time periods and lifestyles, but they're actually not living as full as a life as those other people. So they don't even know if they're right or wrong in actual life experience. It's all theoretical ideology. And they can always say they're right because these are paths they didn't go down. You get what I'm saying? Just like, when I brought up the father thing a second ago. There are men who became fathers, and then it's like, you know what? You didn't do your you really was slacking, because now I see what I'm doing, and I see this is what you wouldn't do. So it's that concept. But a lot of y'all actually aren't fully participating in all of the experiences of life that you could participate in, but you got something to say. And going back to the TV thing, y'all got something to say because of entertainment. Oh, but I had some life. I witnessed some things. Did you? I mean, no, I shouldn't say did you, but the things you witnessed, do you know the full story, or is it just emotionalism? You get what I'm saying? And and part of that is, I think, what happened is, when it comes to this whole concept and ideology, I think y'all are too sheltered. I think a lot of adults and young adults have been too sheltered. And I'm not saying you have to be around dysfunction, but what I'm saying is you have to be around some type of life. Like a lot of y'all are, and as a parent, I realize this. Say, okay, I'm 46. If I met a 20-year-old, like my son's about to be 20 this year. So if I would say, when I talk to my son, I say, okay, and it's not to be cold blooded, but I'm like, okay, you're 20, but in my, what you are at 20, I was at 15, 14, 15. You get what I'm saying? And I see that with a lot of quote unquote young men and women who are in their late 20s and 30s. It's like, damn, you are basically, you're 30 on paper, but you're 22 in life. Mentally experienced, you're 22. You get what I'm saying? And people go, well, y'all had this and this a different time, and this we had a different concept of adulthood and responsibility too, and we had a different concept of reality. Like, and we saw people who were doing the right thing, and people who were dealing with demons, and people who were doing the right thing and dealing with demons, and people who are doing the right thing and not dealing with we were exposed to a lot because we just weren't in the house. You get what I'm saying? We got information from other people, other family members, other friends, family members of friends. We had a wealth of knowledge at our disposal that we use, and a lot of y'all don't. You know, I hate to say this, y'all. You know, you we live in an era where young people won't answer you. You won't answer your phone, but you'll text. You won't even. But you'll ask for money on send a cash app request and not call a person and ask them for something. So it's so impersonal that your logic is impersonal, and what winds up happening is if your logic is impersonal, the TV mindset gave you the imagination to just make up stuff and put it stuff where it didn't exist to make your story the way you need to make it for your own personal whatever. Because going back to what he said, the men back in the day. So you watch I was about to say Love and Happiness. What's love got to do with it? And brothers back in the day were abusive, but you ain't watch the other movies. You didn't watch positive movies, right? You didn't watch positive shows that showed other sides, but I guess that didn't exist now. You get what I'm saying? So it doesn't make sense because, truth be told, as far as a timepiece, um, what's love got to do with it? Jefferson's Sanford and Son is pretty much the same time period. You know, that's my mama and all that other stuff. That it's that time period. But y'all don't keep up with stuff like that. But let me get out of here. You know, the Cosby Show too, because Tina Turner, uh, like from the '60s to the '80s, basically, what that movie was about. But let me get out of here, man. Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.